Hello and welcome to the Fall Start Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host Cameron Edgecombe, joined by the illustrious Whopper. Josh, how you doing?
Well, not too bad. Can't complain too much other than Texas winning, but horns down. That's all I gotta say.
It was a close one. Cam Scattaboo, that guy's a beast. Very interesting to
Understated
see what he does
here.
in the NFL. It's,
It'll be fun.
yeah, something like 170 yards, something like that. It was unreal.
That sounds right.
Did you watch the Penn State Boise State game too?
No, I did not. I was home and we ended up watching Gladiator 2 last night.
Oh, I need to see that movie. I loved the first one.
Fantastic movie, by the way.
What was that?
Not as good as the first. It's not as good as the first, but it's a solid movie.
Yeah, and you know what? I've heard it's exactly what you would want from it. If you're not going to get,
Yep,
Gladiator one again.
exactly.
All right, so let's talk some fantasy football. Specifically, this was the championship week. We had the number 5 seed me versus the number 6 seed Jaden. Upsets the whole way to the championship, playing each other, and upset once again. 6 seed
Mhm.
wins. Congratulations to Jaden. Let's talk about it.
Alrighty.
And I think the story has to begin with Joe Burrow. I mean, Jaden's had this guy pretty much all season. I don't think he made a trade for him or anything. And it started out a little rough. We could see 8, 17, another 17 in there. And
Mhm.
then it just went on fire. They said the defense is terrible. Get on Joe Burrow's back. He's going to carry us. And Jaden got the benefits of that himself.
It's one of those. I'm a bit jealous. Joe Burrow did exactly what you want from Joe Burrow this season, considering I'm only saw just going through, I think only like 3 games where he wasn't above 20 basically. But especially when you look at the last 2 weeks, 21 points, basically 22, basically 37 points in just the last 2 weeks alone. I won't say fantasy MVP, but for quarterbacks, he's probably right up there, if not the MVP for quarterbacks.
Yeah, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, I think, are the only two above him, and that's just because of rushing,
Yep.
as expected. He already has 4,600 yards, and the season's not even over, and 42 touchdowns. Like, dude's balling. This is not what we expected from the Bengals. This defense just being absolutely terrible with the loss of Bates in the secondary and Reeder in the defensive tackle is just completely tore them up. So shocked to see how bad the Bengals defense was. We'll see if they make it into the playoffs. They're going to need the Chiefs to do something that they won't do.
It's this sounds weird coming out of my mouth as a Chiefs fan. I hope we lose to Denver because I do not want the Bengals in the playoffs right now.
I can totally agree with that, though.
Eh,
I do think it would be fun to watch them play against the Bills or the Ravens.
That would be entertaining. Hopefully, if that did happen, they just beat each other up enough to the point where we come in, it's just like, oh, that's easy.
Exactly.
Uh, our luck, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah, the other two MVPs for Jaden, at least in this, was Jamison Williams, 24 and a half points in a meaningless game for the Lions where they were considering benching all their players. Instead, puts up 24 and a half points, including a lateral touchdown that when it happened, I had to turn off the game. I couldn't watch anymore. And 21 points from the Eagles defense against the Cowboys. What shocked you more about all of this? Was it Joe Mixon 5.9 and Nico Collins 8.9, or was it the top two players other than Burrow?
Probably, I'd say Eagles defense just getting that much because it's a defense. You don't expect 21 points, and Dallas typically you think of them having a fairly decent offense, but 21 points, yikes, that's quite a bit from a defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just a cherry on top that it was against Jaden's Cowboys. I mean,
Yeah,
Kyler and Jaden had been watching that like, man, this sucks, but at least we get to a higher draft pick because of it.
true, because they need some help right now and then some.
On the other side, I put up just 5 less points than Jaden. Mostly the problem was Drake May. Could also blame Jaden Reed. Starting him over Devonta Smith did in fact kill me. Made the wrong decision there. And then Achan couldn't do anything without a competent quarterback actually getting him the ball.
Yep.
But man, Bucky Irving, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. Those three are my MVPs. They can't be my guys next year. They're going to be second round picks, each of them. But man, I wish they could be. They were fantastic.
I remember thinking you probably had one of the best my guys when you picked him this year. It was one of those like, damn it, he is just low enough to where he falls into that category because he was one of those, even for me, where I'm not the most up to date on rookies and everything. I knew he was going to be a good one.
Yeah, I called him as soon as I could, pretty much.
Yep.
Was watching his tape at LSU, and I was like, man, this guy's just fantastic. And Malik Neighbors right there with them. These LSU guys were just fantastic. I was so happy to have them.
And then I apologize again for the bad advice on Jaden Reed.
The bigger
In
problem,
my defense, I did say it was a gamble.
yep, yep. I shouldn't have gambled. Should have gone for the floor, but oh well. I think the biggest problem was starting Drake May. It was just my second option was going to be like Bryce Young. It was like, man, I do not want to start this
Yeah,
guy. I
not great either way.
about week 10, I was like, do I have to drop someone so I can fix my roster? Do I drop Bo Nix or Drake May? And I decided to drop Bo Nix, and that was just a terrible decision. Should have stuck with
Mistakes were
Nix
made.
instead of May. Yeah, but
Just not a believer.
but that's okay. Finishing second's not too bad. Wish it could have been first. The problem and the real matchup we have to talk about is Ethan beating Chris in the toilet bowl. Chris finishes
Mhm.
last place. Probably going to be some sort of spicy challenge. Chris can't handle spicy. How do you think he's feeling right now?
Hopefully he's keeping up to date because there's a slight chance in a semester he just completely forgot about fantasy football, which I've been there before. You've probably been there a
Yep,
few times as well.
yep.
Um, I can imagine he's not happy about that because he went from getting second to last place 2 years in a row now. Um, yeah, he's probably not going to have fun in August when we have our draft party again.
Draft party is going to be a blast this year. Good luck to Chris. Better start training those spicy taste buds now. You're gonna need to get those muscles ready. And let's take a look at his team: Mahomes, Brees Hall, Aaron Jones, who I believe at one point he said was the steal of the draft, if
Mhm.
I remember correctly. DJ Moore, Malik Washington, not bad, but just Dolphins with Tyler Huntley at quarterback, not the guy you want. Pat Fryermuth, George Pickens missed a lot of the year. Mark Andrews, so he's starting double tight ends. Tucker, who's been terrible. Jets getting negative points. Jane Daniels on the bench.
And a bunch of injured people.
Yep. Then Brooks, Kirk, both being out. Waddle being out. Palmer not doing much. Like this was a train wreck of a season for Chris.
At the beginning of the year, if you had told me that team was going to do as bad as they did, I would have been shocked because Mahomes, Hall, Jones, DJ Moore, throwing in Mark Andrews and George Pickens, you'd think, okay, yeah, that's going to be a solid lineup.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. You
only
see,
5 wins on the season.
he's got upside, rookie quarterback, rookie running back, and Kirk's been okay a few times. Waddle's obviously a great pick, and just was not. So shout out to Ethan, 4-10,
Yeah,
takes
wrong
the
30.
dub.
Jesus.
Looking at the overall playoffs, we see here we do a toilet bowl, so loser moves on, winner is out. But would have been interesting to see Billy in the playoffs. 142 points is better than most people in that week one, but just didn't
Yeah,
make it.
his team was one of those. Unfortunately, in his case, they only started doing good towards the end of the season. By then, the damage was just done, so there wasn't anything he can do about it.
Absolutely. Now I don't think that there is a way to see. There's like awards and something, I'm sure. Let me see if I can
I think it
pull.
only has the winner and the loser.
Oh, okay. I remember the NFL app had like
Yeah, I'm
awards
not
and
sure
stuff.
if
That was
Sleeper
pretty
does. Or
cool.
there might be something I can do for next season, but in this case, it only shows who the champion was and who ended up winning the toilet bowl.
Jaden 7-7 won the playoffs.
Mhm.
That's just wild.
It's not the first time it's been done because I remember one year I won with a record similar to that. It was before they moved to 17 games, so I was 7-6. But yeah, you don't see that very often. But hey, when your team gets hot, they get hot.
Absolutely. Well, let's see. Let's go ahead before we get out of here. Let's talk about what we would call the fantasy MVPs. And
Yeah.
let's go ahead and start at quarterback. Who would you say was the quarterback MVP of the year? And I'm just looking at fantasy points right now. There we go. Um, you can define MVP however you would like to.
So in my case, is just simply put who is simply just the most like the best one you have. I would probably say Josh Allen is one that you can never go wrong with. Trying to see if I can find his stats right now.
I
I
can
don't
pull
think
it
he
up
had
for you.
many picks this entire season. There we go. There he is.
Yeah, if we scroll down
Number
to
two
career,
QB.
3,700 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, but the real story was on the ground. 531 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns is insane.
51 points against the Rams. Jesus.
Yeah, guy was a monster. We 51 in week 14, 41 in week 15. Had a bad game against the Patriots, but then bounced right back against the Jets.
Yeah.
Just a stop.
So I would say probably Josh Allen. I mean, Kyler, yes, not Kyler. No, Lamar,
I
he
was
is
like, I don't
better.
think anybody would say Kyler.
No, I think I'm the wrong running quarterback there. Um, I'd say just general. I'm still going to say Josh Allen. Lamar is just a better system, in my opinion. But in my opinion, Josh Allen, just because I also like Josh Allen a little bit more, and I'm biased because he did help me win a championship one year.
I do remember that. I think that was his sophomore year. Had that great season.
Yeah, that's when he broke out.
I gotta say, so I went into this thinking I was gonna say Jaden Daniels. I was like, Jaden Daniels has got to be the QB MVP. But I'm thinking about it a little bit more. I think Joe Burrow's fantasy like playoff run here might have been a little bit more valuable. Daniels, nah, it's still Daniels. Yeah, 23, 36, 32. Jaden Daniels was fantastic this year. Going to be the offensive rookie of the year. Absolutely deserves it. I was totally wrong about my analysis of him coming in. Jaden Daniels, the beast.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to running back. And I'll go ahead and start this one. And I think the MVP, we're probably both just going to agree on this, is Saquon Barkley.
It,
2,000 rushing yards. Just an absolute monster on the ground, but also did way better in the receiving game than Eagles running backs usually do. 33 catches, 43 targets. Did a lot on the ground and through the air. Saquon Barkley's got to be the MVP.
the one I'm going to say that could maybe sneak his way into it for at least playoff MVP is Jameer Gibbs.
It's a good answer. Obviously, the RB2 in total fantasy points stayed healthy this
28.
entire year and just finished with back to back to back 25 plus points.
Yep. He's the only other answer outside of Saquon. Fit season though, it's Saquon, but playoff specifically, Jameer might have that one.
Totally understand, though. I would like to give an honorable mention to Chase Brown. The guy started the season pretty bad 5.3, 3.1, 8.9. I think it's about this week 3 that people started to drop him. People
Mm-hmm.
drafted him probably about the 10th round, I want to say. And then Zach Moss gets hurt, and he just absolutely explodes. Got injured against Denver, but man, was having a great season.
Mm-hmm.
All right, who is your fantasy MVP for the wide receivers?
That's a hard one because I feel like a lot of them they had at least one like really good week, at least in the playoffs, because I'm looking at playoffs primarily here.
Sure.
One good week and then one bad week for like those top tier ones. Like you look at Justin Jefferson, 36 points, 17, which 17 is still pretty good, just not quite 36. Um, how did Jamar do? Probably gonna say Jamar Chase. He got you 18 plus points every single one of those playoff weeks. He's with Joe Burrow, fantastic. So that's probably going to be my answer because, again, I feel like with a lot of these ones, especially the high value ones, they were all good. They all had those one weeks where it's like fantastic, and then the other weeks were like, okay, that's pretty good, but not great.
Yeah, totally understand that. I mean, Jamar Chase, triple crown, 377 points, just absolutely crushing second place Justin Jefferson. Guy was a
Mm-hmm.
monster this year. He's got to be MVP. I would give an honorable mention to Brian Thomas, though. Um, 110 less points as a wide receiver four just tells you the difference between Chase and him. But Thomas was picked in the eighth round. I want to say that's when I had him as my guy.
That,
Guy was MVP to me, and he put up 20, yeah, 32 and a half in week 15, 28.2, 23.9, 16, and 17 with Mac Jones as his quarterback. Guy's clearly a superstar. Cannot wait to draft him in the second round next year.
mm-hmm.
All right, and then lastly, let's talk about tight end. I'm thinking, looking at this, Trey McBride was a beast. George Kittle
Yep.
was a beast. Johnny
Yep.
Smith really bounced back and had a great year this year once he figured out his role in the offense. Kelsey and Andrews ended up being a lot better than most people would think. When you if you had them on your team all year, you'd be like, these guys are really disappointed, but they finished pretty high tight ends. But it's got to be Brock Bowers. Guy
Yep.
might be the best tight end in the entire league, and I'm saying that as a Raiders hater. Just fantastic player. And while Week 15 didn't do too great for him, 16 and 17, obviously fantastic. Guy's the tight end MVP.
I'm with the outside with that one. The only one I would argue, just because I did have this guy on my team, so I know how he did all year, would be Trey McBride.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only other one I could argue right now, but it's Bowers. You got him late or later than some of these other tight ends.
Yeah, that week 17, 30.3 in the championship is pretty huge. Kittle was fantastic as well. Like, I don't want to doubt this guy, but he missed 2 weeks. McBride missed one. And it's just the value. Bowers was going later than both these guys and finished higher. And you just can't
Yep,
beat that.
exactly.
All right. Well, look at kicker. Boswell, yep, was the kicker one. Aubrey right behind him. Shout out to Kyler for getting his guy there. And then the number one defense was the Denver Broncos, which is pretty surprising to me. Um, their best week, I believe, yeah, was against the Saints and the Colts. Yeah, just toppled some truly terrible teams and really beat up on everyone that was bad and got beat up by the people that were good. Chargers 4 points, Baltimore -2, Chiefs 5 points. So good team to have, but not to start every single week.
It was definitely fun having them though for defense.
Yeah. All
As
right.
someone who benefited from them most of the season.
Now, before we get out of here, who would you say was the opposite of the MVP? And we're just
Cooper
talking
Cup.
every player. Who was the
Cooper Cup.
worst pick? Cooper Cup?
Cooper Cup.
Just saying right there. Don't even need to talk about anymore. Cooper Cup was the worst pick.
When he gives you at the start of the playoffs, as someone who is probably one of your two wide receivers you play, if you have him on your team, myself included in that one, and he gives you a big fat zero on the first week of the playoffs, I don't care how good he was the rest of the season. To me, that's automatic LVP because that hurt.
I I totally get that. Cooper Cup was obviously a terrible pick. Put up a total of 9.3 points in the fantasy playoffs. That's across 3 games, 9.3 points. Absolutely terrible. And I want to say Christian McCaffrey is obviously the worst pick. That guy was my first pick, and then I followed it right back up with Chris Olave in the
Mm,
second round. So really, mad at those two. They were both absolutely terrible. Um, I can't blame Olave though. He just got hurt in games by bad quarterback play. But
yeah,
man, Christian McCaffrey pissed me off, but I was able to just immediately get those guys off my roster. Like, okay,
yeah.
you're going to IR, and I don't care. I think the worst pick has got to be Tyreek Hill.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So Kyler drafted him at 104, somehow made it work, and the guy has. I'm looking at it right now. I'm trying to find him here for those watching on YouTube. Tyreek Hill, yeah, finished down here at wide receiver 20 or 18, something like that.
18.
26 points in that game where he got arrested against Jacksonville.
Pretty good.
And then did not have another 20-point game until week 13, where he had back to back Green Bay Jets. They said, okay, Tyreek Hill's back, and no more 20-point games. Now, there's a couple in there 19.5, 19.1, but most of the time, it was under 10. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games.
yeah,
If I'm counting right. Three.
I think I count that right.
Yeah. 6 games
Yeah.
under 10, with one of them being 2.3, which, eesh,
Yeah, and I mean, he eventually just became completely unstartable. Um,
mhm.
and you'd be looking at like Rashad Bateman, Nick Westbrook Akine as being like a better pick when this guy was going his legendary touchdown like
Mhm.
every single week. All right, well, I think that does it for the Fidel Fantasy 2024 season. Anything else you want to add, Whopper, before we close out of here?
I'm looking forward to next season. I need to take back that trophy. Um, should have gotten it a lot earlier, so that way I could have carried it around a little bit. But I need that trophy back.
Actually, that's a good point. Speaking of False Start Fantasy Dynasty, lost that one too. Shout out Malachi, had a great year. Jared Goff putting me in the dumpster. Starting Xavier Worthy, watching him kick my ass on Christmas was real painful. Um, just unbelievable season for Malachi. Had the second lowest max points for, and ends up winning the entire championship. Well done, Malachi.
Sometimes it's just better to be lucky than to be good.
Yeah, that's what I always say in bowling. Well, thank you all for listening so much. Tune in next time so you can be ready before the ball is snapped. Thank you. Goodbye.